Think about it. How do you watch Star Wars? Hi, I'm Dylan, and I finally calmed down enough after watching that new Star Wars teaser to be able to talk about it. And if you haven't seen it, somehow, the internet is surprisingly in agreement that it looks pretty good, though there are some concerns about that crossguard on the lightsaber, but whatever. And while we'll find out soon enough if the movie itself is actually good, I wouldn't be surprised if people started watching it differently. Recently, there has been a trend of recutting the generally negatively received Star Wars prequel trilogy in order to make it better. Topher Grace did a cut down of all 3 prequel movies into one mega movie. The total runtime of the trilogy is 7 hours. His version, 85 minutes, and apparently it's totally great. And also, totally something Eric Foreman would do.
This is Darth freaking Vader. Seriously, Dad, if you don't know the Dark Lord of the Sith, the most hated enemy of the Jedi Warrior, then I guess somewhere down the line, I failed with you.
Unfortunately, the cut was only shown to a small group of friends and was never released publicly, so we can only guess. I did, however, the other night have the pleasure of watching the prequel re-edit regarded as the best one, titled Turn to the Dark Side. This re-edit clocks in at 2 hours and 47 minutes, and despite a few plot holes, it's still probably the best way to watch the prequels. Except for, not watching them. That's still much more enjoyable. The movie opens with probably the strongest opening scene in any Star Wars movie. The duel with Darth Maul at the end of Phantom Menace. It is the best scene in that movie, and it leaves the first 5 minutes of the film without dialogue, which is incredibly intense and powerful. Unfortunately, it reduces Liam Neeson's role to nothing but a cameo, but there's only so much an editor can do, which is kind of a trend with these re-edits. Also, I have no idea how Topher Grace got it down to 85 minutes while still making sense. That sounds crazy. The film focuses primarily on Anakin's relationship with Padme and that resulting in him turning to the dark side, which is awesome in concept, but in reality, it relies way too heavily on Hayden Christensen's performance, which is lackluster.
If you're not with me, then you're my enemy.
Gone is most of the boring Senate stuff and the politics and the Clone Wars and General Grievous, and most importantly, Jar Jar Binks. Instead of having Palpatine pull the wool over everybody's eyes in this massive Clone War conspiracy thing, he mainly focuses on turning Anakin to the dark side, which I think is great in terms of tightening down the story in order to focus on just one thing instead of like 50 different things, but I still think the story of where the clones came from is still quite interesting. And again, it focuses on the weakest actor in all of those movies. There are a ton of re-edits out there, not only for Star Wars, for plenty of movies, and even really good ones. It's kind of a weird, cool thing to do because you have to play a game of whack-a-mole with the studios as they try and take down your videos, much quicker than I would have thought. If you find any decent high-res copies of the Star Wars re-edits, I want them. That's not a word. I'd make a parallel between Star Wars re-edits and the grungy underbelly of Coruscant, but I won't, for your sakes. To me, this whole thing is really weird because Star Wars is the most recut series of all time. Since their initial release, these Star Wars films have been recut in each of their roughly 10 subsequent remastered releases. And unlike the fan re-edits, George Lucas's remastered versions didn't just cut down the movies in order to tell a tighter story. Not only is the tactile feel of the world lost in this sea of added CG, but he completely changed the characters. The most popular character change is the Han shot first argument. In the original Star Wars movie, it's very obvious that Han shot Greedo first in Mos Eisley, but in the 1997 special edition and every subsequent edition, George Lucas has made it very clear that Greedo shot first, changing Han Solo's character from aggressive to defensive. George Lucas has always been a firm believer that the audience should watch the film from the director's perspective, and that a film is never really finished. This allowed him to go back and make all the changes that he wanted to make. If you read interviews with him as he released more and more re-edited versions to the appall of thousands of die-hard Star Wars fans, you can hear him getting more angry, jaded, and kind of going insane. Philosophers and literary critics W.K. Wimsatt and Monroe Beardsley wrote in their essay The Intentional Fallacy that the design or intention of the author is neither available nor desirable as a standard for judging the success of a work of literary art. Basically saying that the only thing that matters is the reader's interpretation, and that the author's intended meaning is extraneous and unnecessary. They would argue that Lucas should not have made the changes to the originals that he did, because his, I guess, negative interpretation of the originals isn't as important as our interpretation. we become the authority on Star Wars. Fans have gone to such lengths to bring back the magic of the original trilogy by editing out all the changes that Lucas made over the years. Titled Harmy's Star Wars Despecialized Edition, the films are the closest we've seen to the original Star Wars since its initial release, and they're in full HD, unlike that DVD trilogy edition bullshit. The prequels were recut by fans in order to fix all the mistakes that were made, and now the originals are getting the same treatment, to make them originals again. The poor man's edit, however, is the watch order. There are two popular ways to watch the films: release order and episode order. Release order starts in the middle and ends on a downer with the creation of Darth Vader. Episode order, however, has a really slow and boring start and totally ruins the Vader reveal. But recently I've heard of a much better way to watch it: machete order, which is also a much better name. It goes 4, 5, 2, 3, 6. This way the story is still about Luke Skywalker, and when we get that intact Vader reveal, we're given a 2-movie flashback in order to explain where Vader came from. It also emphasizes the evil of the Emperor and the dark side, because when Luke finally goes to confront the Emperor, we'd just seen his evil in action 1 movie ago. With the release of the Force Awakens trailer, people are already recutting it. Within 24 hours, there were Lego versions, faux George Lucas versions, prequel mashup versions, J.J. Abrams lens flare edition versions, GOAT versions. There isn't a GOAT version? Oh. And while it remains to be seen if Abrams can do what Lucas couldn't, it might actually work out, because J.J. Abrams is a huge Star Wars fan, and from what we've seen from all these re-edits is that fans make great movies. And between all the great prequel and sequel fan re-edits, the Star Wars Uncut fan compilation, and all the great Star Wars mashups out there, we might just have a hope. A new hope. I'm not sorry about that one. I am. I'm very sorry. What do you guys think? Can fan creations be better than creator creations? And are you excited for Star Wars Episode 7? Well, let me know in the comments, and if you haven't already, be sure to click right on my face to subscribe, or at least think about it.